this government has in the past 3 years given out over $110 million in achievement bonuses to selected senior officials. The vast majority of civil servants don't even qualify for this pool of money. To the Premier, why is a select group of senior staff getting tens of millions of dollars of bonuses from this government?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the achievement bonus system is put in place to reward achievement. That means bringing budgets into line and helping government deliver the programs that it wants to be delivered. The number of people that participate in a bonus are those that we would call out of scope. So these would be people working for the public sector that are no longer that are a member of a union. And the number of people eligible for achievement bonuses is 6,100. The average bonus for the year prior was about $5,300 each.
The Honourable Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While this government hands out these millions to very generously paid government officials, Alberta's seniors are told by the same government to pay for basic drug costs. Why is the Premier asking seniors to sacrifice when he's not asking the same of richly paid senior government officials?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I believe the Honourable Leader is referring to this fiscal year that's ending here in a couple of weeks. We made a commitment as a government that we will honour the remuneration obligations that this government has made to this fiscal year end, which is March 31st. Starting April 1st, there is a new budget. There will be changes, and as I said earlier, we'll monitor the revenue stream very carefully, but we may be coming and asking both out of scope and in scope, and even members here at the Legislative Assembly to contribute equally to balancing the budget.
The Honourable Leader.
Again to the Premier. Will the Premier today commit to suspending this bonus pool?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, for next year, the bonus pool is suspended. I will say that what has happened is the reason we had the achievement bonus in place is that I believe it dates back to 1999, where our public sector, especially in management ranks, were much lower paid than other equal positions in other provinces. So we asked a committee, a private sector committee, to review how we can look at it as bonus system and narrow the margin, and we did incorporate many years ago the suggestions and well, actually recommendations of the committee.
Second official opposition main question, the Honourable Leader of the official.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, deputy ministers, the most senior government officials, have particularly high pay levels. Cabinet, a political body, signs off on the bonuses of this group. Again to the Premier. Does the Premier not see that a political body signing off on the bonuses of senior staff jeopardizes the independence of the civil service?
The Honourable the Premier.
I'm not quite sure where the member is coming from, but it doesn't really matter if the recommendations come from a private sector committee or from negotiations. At the end of the day, the Cabinet signs off on all salary negotiated settlements. It is the responsibility of government.
The Honourable Member.
Well, Mr. Speaker, these bonuses, the bonuses themselves, are more than the average Albertan makes in a year. To the Premier, how are these bonuses determined?
The Honourable the Premier.
They're determined on achievement, and to give the example this year, as our revenue was dropping dramatically towards the latter part of the year, instructed my deputy to meet with the deputies and other management to ensure that we do balance the budget this year, and the budget will be balanced. For next year, the next year, we will be, as I said before, suspending, and we will be looking at other public sector salaries. But like I said, we're going to do it very fairly. We're going to meet with them. We're going to gauge our revenue stream and our expenses, and we may have to approach everyone to contribute to balancing the budget.
The Honourable Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last July, Cabinet approved significant pay increases for this April to deputy ministers. to a basic rate of $265,000 per year. That's before bonuses. This salary was set in the midst of a boom, when the government was expecting huge surpluses. Now we're facing a deficit. Again to the Premier, will these pay hikes be continuing?
The Honourable Premier.
Well, I can tell you for next year there won't be any pay hikes, not for elected officials and not for any of the senior officials. But again, then there's the discussion then, what do we do with other public sector people? And I've said that we want to keep our nurses, doctors, teachers working. We do have an agreement with teachers, and we're going to live up to that agreement. It's based on average weekly earnings. We just signed it last year, so we're committed to that. And we'll hold discussions with union leaders, if necessary, to see how we can, bring into line our budget. Can we balance the budget based on the backs of the public sector for next year? No, we can't. It's impossible because the revenue drop is substantial. But we'll look over the next couple of years. If the economy does recover, then we won't have to go through the pain. But if it doesn't, we will have to sit down and have discussions with our public sector.
Third official opposition being questioned, the honourable member for Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Transparency was one of the Premier's priorities whenever he signed off on the 2017 annual report on Executive Council. My first question is for the Premier. Why in this report did the Premier fail to disclose the bonuses paid to senior officials within the Ministry of Executive Council?
The Honourable Premier.
Well, I would ask the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee as to how that was missed. It's obvious that today he recognized it, but when it did occur, he didn't notice it. But we did immediately post on the website a little tiny omission, and it's a little line in terms of the accumulated bonuses for the year. But the bonuses are not something that just came up this past fiscal year. The bonuses have been in place since, I believe, 1999, when the Private Sector Committee came forward and gave recommendations to government to close the gap.
The Honourable Member.
Thank you. Given that the former Premier, Mr. Klein, always, as President of Executive Council, made sure that there was full disclosure of the bonuses, I expect better from the Premier next year. Now, again, given that the Deputy Minister of Executive Council calls the shots on the annual Achievement Bonus Fund allotment, what is set aside now for the fiscal year that's going to end March 31st for achievement bonuses? Is it 40 million? Is it 45 million? What is the amount?
The Honourable
Mr. Speaker, there is a pool set aside for achievement bonuses. One incorrect statement. What happens is the Deputy of Executive Council does meet with the deputies, and there's a pool for deputies, and then there's a separate pool for other management staff. He also meets with ministers. But we also consult with the committee to ensure that the bonus that we have, the pool that we have set aside, is consistent with the recommendations. And the minister will decide, or the deputy minister will decide, in consultation with ministers, to see if the objectives of the business plan were met.
The Honourable Member.
Again, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And taxpayers of this province have the right to know, again to the Premier, what amount has been set aside by the Cabinet in achievement bonuses for the year that's going to end, the fiscal year that's going to end March 31st? Is it $40 million? Is it $45 million? Why won't you tell us?
Honourable Premier.
Problem in informing the House that he's part of the Public Accounts Committee should know that, but the pool for this year for 0809 for the I'm sorry, he asked the question and he's, I guess, doesn't want to hear the answer. But the pool for this year for 0809, and again, the budget year 0809 is ending March 31st, which is in a couple of weeks, and that pool is $40 million.